Hi, listener. This is From Ideology to Unity, a spiritual journey where we let go of ego and ideological doctrine in favor of meaning, purpose, and unity as a whole. So, what this is about is, have you come across fundamentalist Christians online who view and talk about the New Age spiritual movement like it's demonic, or like the aliens are demons, and like it's basically that any of the non-Christian aspects of it, all channeling and all of that, that it's all basically satanic, right? That's how they interpret it because of a number of things, because it doesn't meet um, their spiritual doctrine, and so forth, doesn't fit in their dogma. But I really was wondering emotionally, or why is it really, what's really going on, which is why they're so, I don't want to generalize too much, but I mean, some of them used to be New Age. They got into Kundalini yoga, and maybe, and they, or they opened their third eye early or whatever. But they had bad experiences, and then they left, not never again, and they were really deep into Christianity because of that, and what I have heard is that there are certain poses in Kundalini yoga which, when you're taught them, there are some teachers that teach you the wrong stuff, or some negative polarity teachers who deliberately teach people things that are actually attract negative beings or whatever. But another aspect of it is the dark night of the soul, is something which is difficult to get through, and it can, if it goes, but even in my case, like I had, some weird experiences. Usually it might be just shadow work, but sometimes we encounter aspects of ourselves which, like, they're outside of us, like with sleep paralysis, for example, and or suppose you hear your spirit guides for the first time, like you might, these things could be interpreted as quite scary, and a Christian narrative might be able to persuade someone that it's demons. Uh, and also, just the dark night of the soul can be very difficult to do it. And if people are associating what they go through as, well, I got into spirituality and now I'm experiencing all of this emotion, this intense negative emotion, maybe it's the spirituality causing it, which it kind of is, but not in the way they think, in my opinion. I would say that what it is they've got all that pent up negative emotion subconsciously, and it's coming to the surface into their conscious. And from their perspective, they didn't know it existed before. So it's like they suddenly feel this way, and this stuff is making them feel that way. So they're like, okay, this is demonic or whatever. It's understandable, right? But I was wondering if there's something deeper than that. What is up with the whole appeal of Christianity, and even if people are having bad experiences or difficulties with the dark night of the soul and New Age ideas, what is it that then the whole idea that the spirits and channeling and aliens, the friendly ones, that they're actually just demons and pretending, right? And tricking you. Like, what is the whole appeal in that? And I asked my spirit guides. So, what they told me was, it might be one of these things which is kind of obvious in hindsight, but they're scared of God. And that might seem strange, but they're scared of the light because they're dwelling in darkness. Because they're dwelling in a spirituality fundamentally that's about fear, guilt, and shame, low frequency emotions. And it's a faith that developed at a time where we were very much still stuck in 3D, and we still are now to a large extent, although that's coming to an end. The 3D matrix, the lower emotions, where the lower emotions prevail, and the fourth chakra, the green heart chakra, isn't open largely for most people. And so most people, they do dwell in and are ruled by these negative emotions. And the authorities tell them these things. They look up to the authorities as a source of wisdom and knowledge because they haven't opened their heart chakra. And so there's a whole set of right and wrong, and an almost sense of security in following, a sense of like feeling safe and almost comforted by following what the authority tells you is the right way to do things. And I suppose it's like if someone's got Stockholm syndrome, or someone's highly abused, they might be comforted by a sense of security that they get from following the rules. And they might start identifying these rules as good and noble things. And that suppose one of the other people escapes, who's in that situation, they might view that person as betraying them and breaking the rules and a bad person for having done so, if they're conditioned into it, right? So it's because when you're conditioned into a whole worldview based around these negative emotions, it's like you don't know any different, or at least it's more your ego is identifying with it and identifying with following it. So, and the other thing is the higher three chakras. I mean, there's other chakras, but if you're going with the system of 7, which is the main ones, the heart chakra, throat chakra. That's actually wait, that shows how good my counting is, doesn't it? Basic arithmetic. Okay, the top 4 ones, the heart chakra, the throat chakra, the third eye chakra, and the crown chakra. Right. So these give you access to source, essentially. I mean, or at least definitely a greater access than what you get without opening your heart, for sure. And I think that gives you access to source light coming into the top of your head. Third eye abilities, and just unconditional love and the inner peace that comes with that, and so forth. And when those dwell in the light, those who dwell in the darkness might be afraid of the darkness. I mean, for a start, like imagine like you're dwelling in darkness and there's a bright light and it hurts your eyes, and you're tempted to look, and you kind of look away, right? Another thing is, literally, if you grow up like in fear, shame, and guilt, and that these are the ways you understand reality, and virtue is following the rules dictated by those emotions, and fear is what you feel about not going along with those rules, guilt is what you feel for not following it, guilt is what you make other people feel for not following it, and the same for shame. You feel it if you don't follow it, you make other people feel it if they don't. And so largely some people are controlling each other through this. And so, yeah, those who dwell in the darkness the light scares them because it's an idea of not having those things that they associate what they're identifying with as, in a sense, comforting. Light shines, darkness retreats when light is shone, right? So it exposes the lies they're telling themselves, and it makes them very uncomfortable. And often it's easier to just put it back in the shadow or negativity than it is to face up to it in an honest way. Because then you need to seriously let yourself feel it rather than just suppressing it. And you need to actually confront and heal. And that's a scary prospect because it's not without, it can be a difficult process to go through. That's what the dark night of the soul is. So that's why, those during the light, they shy away from the darkness. And if they don't feel ready to actually confront that, and if it's too intense for them, the dark night of the soul, they might just be like, oh, fuck this, fuck the spirituality. This is just demonic, right? And it's actually understandable if it's too intense for them to handle at the time, or if they quit anyway. I mean, I had a very intense dark night of the soul, and I can imagine other people in my position might have actually, it might have been too much for them, and they might have gone that way. And it's very simple in a way, because that light of love light, that is God. And that connection to source that you get through the opening your heart, that's God, right? Source. So yeah, they're afraid of God. Like in the this is what described, part of what helped me understand this was actually, it was actually Course in Miracles. So it's the idea that a lot of our fears, when you really follow the logic back in terms of the ego is built from logic that's based on a lie, sort of thing. It's hard to explain at the top of my head, but maybe I'll explain it another time, but I don't really know the text well enough. I'm kind of new to it. But there's this idea that a lot of our fears, when it really comes down to it, comes to fear of God. Even fear of death is actually fear of God in disguise. Because when you die, you go to the spirit realm where you have a connection with God and you're afraid of that. And you know that. Oh, also, you were one with God originally. Pantheism, right? And you're afraid of going back to God because the idea is leaving God was kind of crazy to begin with. Or at least that it was, or at least certainly a painful, difficult experience. I'm not against, to clarify, I'm not against or opposed to the fact that souls left source to experience things. I'm not against incarnation. I'm not even confident enough to say that the Christ consciousness is against incarnation, because I'm not sure if you get the full picture, because I'm not sure the full picture is relevant in the Course of Miracles in terms of what Jesus teaches in it. And keep in mind, this is Jesus being channeled, so this isn't Christian. Christianity isn't, in my opinion, about what Jesus actually preached. It's actually about the controlled, Romanized version of that was twisted by shame, guilt, and fear, rather than the love that it's really about. And it's more Buddhist. New Age stuff is actually, quite frankly, the Law of One is the closest thing to what Jesus taught, or like Buddhism or something. But the way he taught things, there was fundamentally a language and a way of putting things and a framing that It's very reminiscent of Christianity in the Cause for Miracles. So basically, they're afraid of the light. They're afraid of God. And fear of God is very common, actually. Even if people don't consciously feel that. It's ironic because those fundamentalist Christians, while they tell atheists, you're afraid of God, right? And the atheists roll their eyes. Kind of true, but not for the reasons the fundamentalist Christians say. Although I am generalizing. That's true. So, yeah. This isn't something, their fear of the light isn't something to denigrate them for. Because certainly, oh God, you can hear a washing machine, can't you? How long has that been going for? Oh well. So, this is what I get for doing it on my phone, isn't it? Well. Oh well, it's real, isn't it? So, yeah. I think that's my point already made clear, otherwise I'm just repeating myself at this point. So the thing is, we can be loving towards them and offer them. They'll get back to New Age spirituality eventually. It might take them time, but frequency is going to be rising increasingly, and inevitably they can't stay in those low frequencies forever. They can't stay in that fear of shame and guilt forever because the frequency's rising. It's going to become increasingly hard to even maintain that, and they might automatically start going back into dark nights of the soul again, just because of the frequency rising. But I don't know how long this awakening is going to take to fully play out. I don't think it's going to take 100 plus years. But whether it's going to take a year, I'm not sure. That might be a bit optimistic for it all to play out within a year. It might actually take 15 years. That's my perception of things. But I'm already seeing signs. I've already seen signs of change. For example, I don't identify as a libertarian anymore, like libertarian right, but I did for a long time. I was honestly dogmatic about it. But I do follow, because I still have a soft spot for libertarian politics. And I do follow them, right? And I've noticed there are some people talking about libertarian unity. And of course that intrigues me, because unity is a key principle of the law of one. My podcast is From Ideology to Unity. And they're talking about more unity with other libertarians, including potentially left libertarians, if they're willing to cooperate, because a lot of them wouldn't, in my opinion. But there's already, from what I hear, a new Occupy Wall Street thing. Now, there's certain negative aspects to Occupy Wall Street, perhaps, but actually, this is Six Hexenhammer 666 was talking about this. I think he was. This idea that perhaps this is a sign that, no, it wasn't him. That wasn't Six Hexenhammer. It was, who's the guy who was on Tim Paul's podcast a lot, but now he's got his own podcast. He's like a model. He's really good looking and stuff. I can't remember his name, but he's got quite a good podcast, and he talks about politics a bit, but he's pretty centrist. He's even more. No, he's not even. He would have been a Democrat, like your average Democrat back in the day, but now he's considered right wing or something. I don't know. He's not right wing, but the point is that he was saying, it shows that people are now paying less attention to identity politics. That doesn't mean there aren't people who are very into identity politics and the division that comes from that. But I feel like the people are realizing things are getting so bad with the movements towards authoritarianism that we can't afford to squabble anymore. And more people are starting to realize that. Like, our petty differences, they don't really matter if the Great Reset is happening. And, like, in the face of the bullshit with COVID and all of that, like, there are bigger fish to fry, basically. And people are starting to pick up on that. And also, I think that this happening after the solstice in 2021, I think it's a sign. People are starting to awaken, whether they realize it or not. So, all right, I've been going on for a while, and I think I've dealt with everything I want to cover, and some of the things I didn't plan on covering too. So, if you bared with me for 21 minutes, thank you, and bye for now.